Hello everyone, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel and welcome to the second day of fall. It's a little bit chillier outside, which is nice. Makes me look forward to the hiking season in the winter again because I do love hiking through the snow and in snowstorms. I think there's something very unique about being caught in a snowstorm when you're hiking at very high altitude. It's one of those things, it's not for everyone. So what I wanted to talk about today is because I've been getting a lot of questions about the anger book I always suggest, which is How to Control Your Anger Before It Controls You. In my opinion, the best anger book ever written, with the best suggestions. And I'm going to talk about in this video my opinion on chapter number 2, which is myths surrounding how to deal with your anger. And I think this is very key. Before I go any further, please subscribe, hit that like button, comment down below if anger is something that you struggle with. As Kirsty said, who's done videos in the past talking about anger becomes its own mini theme. And because anger becomes its own mini theme, people are afraid to feel the physical symptoms of anger. And then there's a belief system that perpetuates anger. Now, before I go any further into this, it is important to realize, like we always talk about in the first book on the reading list and disputing your irrational beliefs, it's A plus B equals C. So activating events plus belief systems equals C, which is emotional consequence. Most people with anger believe that A equals C. So they believe that activating events, other people in their lives, things that go wrong, are the primary reason for their anger. Like I was at an event the other day, and I heard the person hosting the event call a speaker up and say, "You made me angry today." That's a common misconception. That person did not make you angry. Your belief systems about that person made you angry. Once you understand this, you take back the ability to decrease and regulate your anger-creating belief systems, and that pendulum that swings from no anger to extreme resentment and anger starts to pendulum swing like this. So let me read you the opening paragraph in this chapter. You have no doubt heard many common sense suggestions for dealing with your anger. Popular magazines, television talk shows, radio talk shows, Host Daily offer solutions that are supposed to help you live a life free of anger and resentment. Unfortunately, many of these ideas simply don't work. If you consulted today with 5 different professionals about how to best deal with your anger, you would have 5 different methods. Some experts will tell you the solution to your anger lies in your past. The only way to successfully deal with your rage is to go back and heal old wounds. That's more popular today. And deal with your rage. Others, however, may advise you that your past doesn't count. If you change your present job, relationships, or situations that upset you, you will undoubtedly lead a happier, healthier, less angry life. So changing externally where the belief system is being perpetuated internally, which then is causing the anger. So these are all really key. So myth number 1, actively expressing your anger reduces it. The view that you may actively express anger to reduce it stems from Freudian thinking. According to Freud and other models, your emotions and your anger build up over time and create a reservoir of negative energy. If you do not express or release this pent-up rage, it eventually bursts out into physical outbreaks, illnesses, and emotional disturbances. People who subscribe to this theory encourage you to vent all your anger feelings and thereby drain off your reservoir of pent-up energy. So this is the biggest myth by far. This is a huge myth. I see all sorts of posts about people always let your anger out. But letting your anger out all the time has pros, but also many cons. You can lose your job, create more unnecessary animosity of other people against you, which you have no control over. What many people who work with anger miss, especially from an anxiety and OCD sense, they are better off learning how to wear that anger like an uncomfortable coat and go about their day. Let me give you a practical example. Let's say I'm in a conversation with my wife and we're talking about politics. I love politics, I love economics, I love the stock market, and I love money. I love talking about things that really kind of people tend to avoid because their emotions dictate over their logical thinking and their belief systems, and they act very rash and very irrationally. It's hard for people to sit down, analyze in a non-OCD sense and think, okay, this is what's going on in the world, and so forth. And what happens is when my wife and I disagree on something, I used to explode and be like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. Then I realized that we didn't need to agree on everything. And I can allow that to pent up inside of me. And as that pent up inside me, I realized that I didn't need to, the mailman's here, yay, I love our mailman. I don't need to, squirrel brain, I don't need to express that how people think. Allowing yourselves to wear that and actually experience that discomfort is more than likely the best thing you can do when it comes from an anger perspective. Are there a time and place to speak up? Yes, but many people confuse confrontation with anger. Confrontation and blunt straightforwardness is not the same thing as anger. And many people think anger is the only way to communicate when there's someone that's disrespecting you or not accepting you. And that is myth number one. It's a great myth. Myth number two, take time out when you feel angry. Some professionals who realize the dangers and costs of venting rage tell you vigorously to try to avoid or escape from the situations where you're likely to get angry. They call this procedure timeout. And this means if you find yourself becoming angry with your kids, take a break. If your temper is rising at work, go for a walk until you calm down. Sounds like good advice, but maybe not. There are some problems with this way of dealing with your anger. Let's look at two people who use this approach. So he goes to explain some of the benefits. In the beginning, because I had so many anger-creating beliefs, notice how I say anger-creating beliefs. When I became very angry, it was nobody's fault but my own. Other people and situations played into it, but it was primarily my fault. Understanding that is critical for decreasing your anger. So what happened was I would always use the timeout. And we would have a safe word called pineapple. Some of you have maybe heard about this. It has a place. But eventually I had to learn how to wear that anger, wear those emotions, allow myself to experience it just like any other symptom, like physical symptoms of anxiety, groinal responses, depersonalization, derealization, and depersonalization, wear those sensations and allow myself to learn how to talk effectively is a better way to say it. But many people use the timeout too much and it becomes an avoidance. So learning how to wear that discomfort is critical. And this is the biggest mistake I made from a behavioral avoidance standpoint. Do I think there's a place for it in the beginning? Sure. But it's like social media. If you're having a really hard time being compulsive, it might have to go away for a little bit, but the goal is to always bring it back with balance, and that's the key. Myth number three, anger pushes you to get what you want. This is probably the biggest myth in the societal context. Perhaps, like most people, you believe that your anger helps you get what you want, or that anger pushes you to overcome adversities and injustices. As we discussed in chapter 1, far from helping you achieve your goals, it is more likely to get in your way. Do you believe that without your temper outbursts, people will not listen to you, respect you, or comply with your wishes? You could think of many political leaders, religious leaders, monetary finance, stock market who believe this cold-heartedly, that they have to yell, scream, and put other people down in order to be heard. Yes, some people may bend to your rage. Your spouse, your children may do what you want to get the call off your wrath. Your co-workers may also attempt to get away from your fury. So what's wrong with that? Well, people may fulfill your desires while you're yelling and threatening them, but mainly because of your constant pressure. Over time, they're likely to become resentful, bitter, and distant. This is what happened with Ned and his family. And he goes on to talk about this example about Ned was always, on edge and yelling at the family and yelling at the dogs. So I used to believe, like most people, that in order to get my belief across, I needed to yell at people. I needed to get my emotions off my chest. I had to prove them wrong. Once I could break down this belief system by realizing that no one needed to respect me, no one needed to listen to me, that, real quick, being accepted and being respected are amazing. There's great benefits with them. They make you feel good. They help you in your life, your relationships, your marriage, your business, but they're not necessary in the way that many people believe. Many people believe that you 100% must be accepted and liked and all of those things in order to live a good life, that they're attached to your identity and attached to your happiness. This is a myth, easily broken down once you practice it for a year or two. It does take some time. Notice I said a year or two. So it doesn't do what you think. And the reason why we think that as people who put other people down or constantly to get our point across is because we believe, because so many other people do it and we've been conditioned to it, that that's the only way to communicate. Is there a time for anger and resentment? Yes, but many, very, 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 very small, which could actually be debated in both ways. Because if you look at people who've gone through extreme injustices, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, any other social injustice, many of them didn't get that angry. They were passionate, but they weren't angry and putting other people down. Nelson Mandela is a great example of this. When he was released from prison, he worked with the people, I believe, I don't know the story exactly, but he worked with the people who put him in jail to kind of change things socially, which is insane. An insane concept for many people to accept. Okay. Myth number 4. Insight into your pasts decreases your anger. This is another myth that is often instilled by professionals. These people hold that in order to deal with your anger, you must get in touch with and replay your childhood traumas that once made and still keep you enraged. If you accept this myth, you could spend years in therapy trying to figure out why you are the way you are. Many people will happily explore with you every detail of your childhood and adolescent development. While this self-exploration can be interesting, it will help you decrease your anger. Hardly. In order to test this idea, let's look at an analogy. This is the analogy I use all the time. Let's say you play tennis and you would very much like to improve your tennis game. So you go out and hire a tennis coach to help you. After several lessons and observations, the coach is able to identify or diagnose some of the reasons why you're not playing better. Looks at you and says, "Hey, Nick, your swing sucks." He points out that you hold the racket in a slightly wrong angle. Also, your stance when you hit the ball is awkward. How effective would that coach be if he spent months trying to help figure out how you developed your awkward style of stance? Perhaps you learned the grip when you were playing tennis with your sister one summer, or maybe you developed poor tennis posture in the gym in 5th grade. Would these insights help you play better? A better game of tennis? Rarely. For you to improve, it does not help to discover where or how you develop your awkward style. One of the number one principles when you're breaking down the myths surrounding universal good and bad people, when you break down the myth of self-esteem, because self-esteem is a myth, it's always conditional. Unless you're an absolute perfect person, you never make a mistake, and those people don't exist. So it's important to realize that the past, it's so unfortunate, but many people spend their entire lives anxiety, depression, OCD, PTSD, BDD, all these eating disorders, and everything else that can be dealt with in the past. If you're doing this, I implore you to stop, because it's not getting you the results that you want, because you're not working on your beliefs in the now. Your belief currently, right now, on that situation is perpetuating your anger. So, I grew up in an Italian household from Jersey in New York. We yelled a lot, all right? How you doing? We were always yelling at each other. That's just how it was. So my mom was raised in Brooklyn, in Staten Island, and my mom is very much, like how I can be in many different ways. And we would disagree about like going to get a bagel, and we'd be like, well, I want to fucking go and do that, and a lot of Northern Italian communities can relate to this. Super funny. I was on a call earlier today with a guy from Scotland. I hope he watches this, talking about how his family, his mother's side was Italian. He's like, maybe it's in the genetics. I said, probably. We're always yelling. But I had to realize that all I could do was, okay, this may be, not certainty. You can't, anyone telling you this is where, can't. Maybe this is where it came from. Okay, acknowledge that. I spent 5 seconds on that. What is the belief I hold now? That shouldn't have happened. This is horrible. My family's terrible. People deserve to treat me better. It's the beliefs in the now that are perpetuating the anger primarily. That is the key. That is the key. Myth number 5, which plays directly into myth number 4 about the past. Outside events make you angry. When people get angry, they often fail to take responsibility for their own feelings. How many times have you thought or said, he made me angry, she pissed me off? Remember my example in the very beginning about the meeting I was at. They made me furious. With these types of statements, you imply that your angry feelings lie outside of your control. You are, alas, just a helpless victim whose emotions have dramatically risen and fallen depending on how the world treats you. If outside events really made us angry, we would all respond the same way in similar happenings. For example, take a situation where 10 people are stuck in traffic and they're late for their meeting. Will all 10 people respond the same way? Absolutely not. It's a factor. The past, outside events are a factor on your belief systems, but you have direct control over time on those belief systems and bring them down in order to decrease your anger creating beliefs. If your goal is to never feel angry again, ever, slippery slope. You'll probably feel angry from time to time. Humans are fallible. There's probably a huge genetic component as well. But that's for a different video. But you can really, really put that under a regulation, as I like to call it, and that's key. So I'll read you the last one in this. This was, wow, December 21st, 2021. These 5 myths are some of the most common we have observed in our clients who have sought help for their anger problems. There are many other fallacies about anger, for now, except as a start, the 5 we have just described. And you can nicely proceed with our following chapters on how to live without any angry feelings. Next chapter is, the rational thinking ABCs, activating event belief systems consequences, how to bring down anger. Let's see. In chapter 4, rational and irrational aspects of anger. He does go into the rational perspectives, which are very small, famine, tyranny, genocide, stuff like that, understandable behaviors. Special insights into your self-angering beliefs. Keyword, self-angering beliefs. Disputing your anger-creating beliefs. Ways of thinking out of your anger. Feeling your way out of anger. Acting your way out of anger. This is such a good book. Learning to relax. Not in a compulsive way. Still more ways of thinking yourself out of anger. Oh, man. He has these songs in here. Additional ways of reducing your anger. You get the idea over and over. So that's the book right there. Highly recommend it. Terrific book. Maybe one day we'll add this to the reading list. I think it would be an extreme benefit. If you have any questions, always remember, info@ocdrecovery.com. Lots of great webinars coming up. Be a lot of fun. Coaching services. If you have any ideas for webinars you'd like to see us cover surrounding anger, please comment down below. Let us know. Hopefully the weather stays like this. It's nice and cool right now. It feels really good. Thank you so much for watching. And as always, have a great day.